Hi, I'm Angela of MidModernMama.com, and today I am going to show you how we put together our beautiful stock tank pool. Super easy, super fun. It saved our summer last year. My husband Romano is here. He is going to talk you through the technical details of putting it together, and then I'm going to tell you all about how to maintain it. This is our second summer with the stock tank pool. We did this last summer when shutdown was starting and the whole world was kind of worried about the summer and what was going to happen. And we knew we just needed to get through with a pool for the summer, and this was an easy way to do it, and a really good DIY project. So this is all about our stock tank pool from start to finish. I also included a link in the comments. You can see how to put it together on my website. I've got a whole guide to how to do it, products, all of that kind of stuff. It's all on my website. We've also included in the carousel below all the products we've used and a couple of things like an inflatable llama that you might want for your stock tank pool. So be sure to ask questions. I'll be monitoring those comments as we go along, and don't forget to click like and you'll find out, and follow me, you'll find out more about what we do around here. So without further ado, I'm going to click over to my husband, Romano, introduce him to you, and he's going to tell you a little bit about how to put together a stock tank pool from start to finish.
Hey Amazon, how's it going? So this is our stock tank pool, and I'm going to tell you that it was not too bad. I was a little worried about getting into this, but as it went along, I figured out a couple things, and I want to share those with you guys tonight. First thing you probably would guess is that a stock tank pool is really heavy. Just to give you some context, our stock tank pool, which is a 7-foot diameter and a 2-foot high wall, weighs almost as much as a Cadillac Escalade of all things. So you have to be a little thoughtful about where you're going to put this thing. It certainly can sit on the ground, and ours happens to sit on a concrete pad that was here for a hot tub from the previous owner. You probably don't want to put this thing on your deck. Most decks, and for that matter, the floors in your house, are designed for about 40 pounds per square foot of load, and the stock tank pool is going to weigh almost twice that. So you just need to be really thoughtful about where you put this thing. We also have ours sitting on some foam, some pink styrofoam. It's rigid insulation, which you can get. I think you can even order it on Amazon, believe it or not. And that actually gives it a real nice foot feel for when you're inside of the pool. It was a little bit more rigid when we were kind of setting it up, standing on it when it was on the concrete, and we tried the foam, and it made all the difference for us when we were in there. So that's actually something that we would recommend as well. In terms of the pad that it sits on, you don't have to pour a concrete pad. We just happen to make use of the one that was already here. You can put it on some gravel or sand, something like that you can get nice and level. It's definitely a way that you can prep the ground. I would also recommend too that you do a little work to get rid of any kind of organic soil, because this thing will sink, and if you want to pull out sod or wherever you're going to put this thing, you want to be thoughtful about that as well too, because it will get muddy around it if you have soil there, because obviously part of the fun of the stock tank pool is to splash around and have a good time. Our stock tank pool came from a farm supply store, and they've been in pretty short supply the last year or two because people are working on so many home improvement projects. But we were lucky enough to find ours, and I think that the supply has caught back up again with the demand. We drove past one a week or two ago and saw that there were plenty of stock tank pools out there. For us, we were able to also finagle a delivery, because this was, at 7 feet in diameter. Not everyone's set up to haul something like that, and so we were lucky enough to have it come, and then once it was on our property, it was easy enough to roll it into place. One of the first things that we had to do was to prep it, because we didn't want this to be like an inflatable pool that you just sort of fill with water and then you empty it and then you fill it again when you need it. We intended from the beginning to set it up as a pool. And for that, Angela's going to take you through all the pump and the chemicals and all that kind of stuff. But what that meant for me is that I needed to prep it to be able to have water in and water out through intakes. So one of the first things I want to talk about is this does require some tools. And since this is with metal, I want to recommend safety glasses anytime you're using tools, power tools. And then also if you don't feel comfortable or you want to protect your hands, definitely want to wear some gloves. I've nicked up my hands plenty because I don't wear gloves all that often, and I really should. So learn from my mistakes and wear gloves and safety glasses. The first thing that you'll need is actually what's called a hole saw. And this is a hole saw right here. It's composed of a cutting blade, and then this is called an arbor. And so this is actually a pretty cool product that Diablo puts out, and it has a quick release, and that's for both the drill bit itself and then for the hole saw, where it can just drop right in and click into place, and that is super handy. So I would definitely recommend that. And then I also have just a standard, this is a hammer drill that has several settings for drilling, for driving, and then also for hammer drill itself. So pop that guy in the truck and then tighten it up. One thing you'll notice too is that this is a DeWalt and it is cordless. The reason for this is that I made a decision a long time ago to go with a system, a charging system. So these are interchangeable 20 volt max in this case for DeWalt, that's their line. But to have this, I've got batteries that I can swap between. Gosh, I probably have a dozen different hand tools that are battery powered in the DeWalt line. And I find that to be super useful because when I'm running low, I just swap out the battery. And if I'm working on something and the battery runs out on the circular saw, I can pop it over into the jigsaw if I need to, kind of thing. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. Another thought too, while we're talking about tools and bits, bits and blades are what are called consumables. And I find that I thought it was great to have a complete set so that I could have hole saws, for instance, so that I could cut any diameter hole I wanted. But the truth is, it costs a lot of money to get an entire set of 20 different size bits. And so instead, my recommendation is that you buy one bit for the size that you need for a particular project, and that you spend more money on it. Because the truth is that set that I bought, where I had 20 different bit sizes, couldn't cut through the side of the stock tank pool. And I wore the cutting blades down to a nub and still hadn't cut through. And then I picked up one of these and was able to cut through in about 20 seconds of drilling. So definitely would recommend that you spend money on consumables like bits and blades because they will help you get the work done more easily. And then one note on the tool itself, if you're familiar at all with purchasing power tools, you'll know that there's what's called consumer grade, and then there's what's called contractor grade or construction grade. And the thing is that almost everybody puts out, whether it's DeWalt or Milwaukee or whomever, they'll put out a fancier line for contractors that costs quite a bit more, sometimes as much as 3 or even 4 times as much as the consumer grade product. The problem is, I have a friend who's an industrial engineer, and he did some testing on this, and he found out that on average, even if the tool costs 3 times as much, it might only last for 20% longer in terms of total hours of operating time. So it's probably going to be a better investment if you buy, over the course of using your tools, to buy a couple of consumer grade, say drivers or drills, as opposed to spending all your money on one contractor grade. Because I'll tell you, if you have the good cutting bit or the good hole saw, if you have the good consumables, they're pretty agnostic about what is driving them. So spend your money on the bits, not on the drill itself. So anyway, take a look over at the pool here. We had a couple of holes that we needed to drill. This first one is the output, the input from the pump. And then next to it here, you can also see where we've added a spigot. And this spigot is actually going to be for a future project of connecting a propane hot water heater that'll allow us to turn this thing into a hot tub. So you'll have to tune back in once we get around to actually doing it. So for these holes, I started first, since we're working with metal, with a punch, a center punch that allowed me to make a dimple in the side of the pool itself. It's also important, since it is a radius, to find as flat of an area on the side. You can see that there are some different patterning and things, and so I found the flattest area that I could off the side of the stock tank pool, and then with the dimple, that allowed me to then start with engaging the hole saw. The hole saw, actually drilling onto metal with anything, is much easier if you start with a punch and make a center punch to guide the bit, because otherwise it will wander like crazy until it finally bites. And so that's a good tip to have too. And these are sturdy. I believe they're probably 18 gauge, which is fairly thick as metal goes, not something that you're easily able to bend, and so it does take a bit of effort to drill through that.
You included all of those things in the carousel below, right?
All these things I've mentioned so far are listed in the carousel for folks to look at. The other thing is that since the pump that we bought is actually part of a above ground pool kit, I had to make a couple of modifications to be able to get the pump to attach to the side of this. And one of those was that I needed to do some adjustment of the actual PVC pipe itself. And one of the things is that it didn't have a perfect fit, and so I used a heat gun in some cases to expand the PVC a little bit. You can stretch it as much as 1/8 of an inch or even 1/4 of an inch larger than its diameter, just by heating it up. And then I had to have a tighter fit into one of the components that came with the pump, and so for that I used a sander to take just a little bit off of the PVC, because there's a good thick wall on the PVC, and so we were able to make those adjustments and make those work. So one of the things too is that as we did this, we wanted to have all of the controls on this side of the pool, and so we do have the inflow and the outflow separated by about 90 degrees, because you want to create a little bit of a convection within your pool and not have them right next to each other, because then it doesn't fully cycle through the entire pool.
I'm going to point out where the input and out.
Absolutely. So this is the flow in from the pump right here, and then on the back side over here, 90 degrees, is where the flow from the pool out to the pump is located. The spigots then were added. Those are separate from each other, and that's going to be hot water eventually, and so that'll have its own sort of normal convection, because heat rises, whether it's in a fluid or in a gas like the air in your house. The last thing I wanted to mention before I hand it off to Angela is that when I put this thing away, or I failed to put this thing away before we had some snow, and so we ended up getting some extra water in there, and like I mentioned, it only takes an inch or two of water to be so heavy that you can't tip it over anymore. So I ended up having to pick up an inline pump, which is great and useful, and I would recommend that you get one anyway. But what we'll also do this next winter when we winterize this thing is I will add another spigot down near the bottom so that we can drain this thing more fully and not have to rely on the pump to get rid of all the water that's in the bottom. So with that, I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts or anything like that. I'm happy to answer them, and otherwise happy to let Angela explain about actually keeping this thing safe for swimming.
Freddie just commented, he said, what a playground we have in our backyard, and that is absolutely 100% true. So we have, here we go. So we have this beautiful pool, and now we have to keep it clean, and that is sometimes a little bit of a trick. But we have chosen to chlorinate our pool, and that makes it super, super easy. I'm going to switch to my other camera here because I think that will make this a whole lot easier. So hang on one second. There we go. Okay, so keeping this pool clean is kind of my job, and I will tell you it is not all that hard. So, but there are a few things that I did. The first thing I did, I actually consulted with a pool store near us, and I did that to get the right chemicals. We have hard water here. We have soft water here. And so I needed to make sure that we had all the right things in our kit in order to keep the pool clean. And so the first thing when I was dealing with this pool store, they just gave me a list. And then I went to Amazon and I bought everything. And that was really helpful. So I would recommend that you consult with somebody who knows your local water a little bit and kind of get a list of the things that they recommend, because every municipality's water is a little bit different, and depending on what the mineral input is in your particular area, that'll determine what you end up needing. So for us, this is our pool kit, and I have chlorinated tablets. Those go in. I also add sanitizer, chlorine, every couple of days. I use an old tablespoon as a measuring for this, because really, so a stock tank pool is somewhere between a spa and a pool. It's a little bit bigger and has a little more water than most spas, and has far less water than most pools. So you're somewhere in between. For us, the measurement is somewhere between 500 and 600 gallons of water in our pool. So that's what I calibrate all of this for. I have shock, I have pH up and down, I have calcium hardness increaser, and all of this stuff is listed in the carousel down below. I also have test strips. And I run tests on the pool at least once a week, often quite more frequently than that. But again, these are all kind of the chemicals that we use to keep it clean. But I also have a secret weapon. And this secret weapon, I could not do all of this pool chemistry without it. And that is called the fin. Let me show you the fin. The fin is a pool monitor, and it floats in the water. It's right here. It stays in the water, and there's an app that goes with it. It is amazing. So I get these great little messages from the fin that says, you need to add a little chlorine, or your water chemistry is a little bit off, add some pH up or down. It's fabulous. So I highly recommend the fin, P-H-I-N. It's amazing, totally amazing. And I highly, highly recommend it. It is a little pricey, I will tell you that, but, and on Amazon it says it's discontinued, but I actually reached out to the company. That's not entirely true. They are reconfiguring some things. So it's okay to still buy it. And there's still going to be support, and it connects to this app, and your phone will just tell you what chemicals your pool needs. It takes all the think work out of it. So I highly recommend that. We also have a few other kind of basic tools for keeping your pool clean. Here's a couple of them. So this is a giant brush, and we use this and just scrub off the bottom of the pool every couple of days. It's really great, inexpensive. Something really great. This is a pool cleaner filter, and this we just kind of skim along on the top and skim off anything, leaves or bugs or whatever that fall in. This is also super helpful. Inexpensive tools that make it a lot easier. So let's talk a little bit about filters. And first I'm going to show you the pump. So we have an Intex above ground pool pump. And it's very easy to use, really simple. We keep it right here underneath this barrel. There it is. It's pretty quiet, simple to use, and there are filters. Can you hold that a second? Inside, show you. All you do is pull out this filter and change it out. So right now I'm actually trying out a new kind of filter. It's called the Orca. It's listed below. And this is a reusable filter. This is a new product. I'm so excited about it. It's a new product that is available on Amazon. And it's reusable over and over and over again. Otherwise, you can use these, and this one is dirty and needs to be washed. But this is a paper filter, and this is also a really common thing to use. They're designed, sold all over the place. You can use one for a couple of days and throw it away, or you can use it for a couple of days and rinse it out and reuse it. If you do that, I recommend some Filter Clean. It's a special soap that you can soak this in, and then use your hose with like a pressure sprayer, not a pressure sprayer, but a higher pressure end on it. That will help you get this nice and clean again. And I would say I've used these 3 or 4, even 5 times, depending on how clean I can get it, before I have to put in a new one. The Orca, which is really an interesting product, and like I said, new to me, seems to be a replacement for this. But what you do need to buy then are what are called pool socks, Filter Saver pool socks. And these are basically pieces, they look like this. It's basically a sock made out of nylons that goes over your filter. And it gets the small particulates out of your pool. So I do recommend, if you're going to use the Orca, which we've only been using for a couple of weeks, but I like what I'm seeing so far, I would recommend also making sure that you have a sock to go on it. All of this, again, is in the carousel below. Oh, and I see that we have Alex, maybe from New York. Thank you for joining us. And someone else, hola. I wish I spoke Spanish. I don't, but hola anyway. Bienvenido. I'm welcome to have you. Glad to have you too. So what kinds of questions can I answer for you about setting up your stock tank pool? Is there something that I can help you with or answer for you? Let's see, just type it in the chat if you have a question. My son is monitoring the comments, so he'll let me know if somebody's got a question, which is good to know. So let's talk a little bit while we're waiting, if you have questions, about pool toys. So you will notice over here our llama who is hanging out in the pool. One of the things that we learned very, very quickly about a stock tank pool is that most pool toys are too big for a stock tank pool, especially floaties. We had a big turtle that was super fun, and it basically filled up the whole pool, and it was actually pretty dangerous. So I highly recommend, and I've included a whole list of the toys that we love littler toys, though I will say our llama gets a lot of use. He's really fun. We also I have this inflatable ring thing that I absolutely love, and I can sit and float in the pool forever, and it's so wonderful. So I highly recommend that. One more thing I should tell you about is a pool cover. So we have, show you, this spa cover. It basically is a giant piece, if you can look, of bubble wrap. It's much more sturdy than bubble wrap, but we put that over the top. We're here in Colorado where our nights still get kind of chilly in the summer. And when water evaporates out of the pool or the ambient air temperature dips down, things start to get cold and the water will get chilly. And that's another thing that the fin will tell you. It measures your water temperature, which is really fantastic. We find that about 82 degrees is about perfect here. But that's also because it's not crazy hot. And if you are in the Pacific Northwest right now, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I know you guys are roasting out there. But a pool would be a fantastic thing for you if you don't have one already, I'm sure. I highly recommend this pool cover. We put it on when we're not using the pool, unless the water's too warm. And if the water's too warm, then we take it off and sometimes add a little bit of water out of the hose. And that takes care of it. It makes it all super easy. So I recommend that. And again, that's also in the carousel. All the things we've talked about today, the tools, the pool pump, the toys that we love, some of the chemicals, everything we use to keep it clean, all of that stuff is linked in the carousel below, so you'll find super easy. I am monitoring. I don't see any other questions or comments, so I think it's time for us to go get some supper. I hope you guys have a great time building your own stock tank pool. If you have other questions or comments, you can reach out to me through my webpage. I'd be happy to answer them. Or follow me on Instagram. I do a lot about stock tank pools there. But I'm super excited that you are here. Thanks so much for joining. Please click the follow button and follow me. I'll have another, we're going to do a whole bunch of tutorials on how to build some garden beds and all kinds of stuff. So thanks so much for joining us. See you soon. Bye.